thank you again. To those of you that do not know me, I'm Dominika and I'm the president of the foundation supporting OMGKRK, which is the host of today's event. And to give you a few words about the foundation, so our bold mission is to build the world-class ecosystem in Krakow, but what we are really doing each day is to support the growth of existing startups in Krakow, but also trying to attract the new ones to come here and locate their business and you know, help them grow. So this is what we do, and we do that mainly through the events like this one, like that support matchmaking, knowledge exchange, but we also you know, conduct a lot of research related to mapping the ecosystem. So hopefully one day you will also support that activity with you know, sharing some data about your startup so that we can really grasp the full potential of the ecosystem. What also we do is that we have some you know, quite nice acceleration program, and some of our alumni are here with us, like Seth that just presented their project before we officially started. So so this is definitely a very important area of activity, this formal educational program for young entrepreneurs, but also this type of session that we are having today, like that supports knowledge exchange between founders. This is also a way for us to help more mature founders to also learn from each other and hopefully grow in some specific areas of activity. So those virtual founders breakfasts have been you know, dedicated strictly for knowledge exchange, good practices exchange, and also supporting each other during this quite interesting times of pandemic, where you know, there's a lot of uncertainties on which paths to take and how to develop your business. So hopefully you will enjoy today's session. We organize it once per month during breakfast. So this is also something that you need to highlight to us, whether this is a good timing to have those sessions. But since you're here, probably this is you know, something that works for you. But we can also arrange that in the afternoon, so we can discuss that probably later on. So without, like, you know, further delay, I'd like to welcome our two speakers that allowed us to do the introduction, because the event is all about, you know, first introducing some good practices before through our guest speakers, but then we want to use your collective minds to really share other use cases and other strategies that you implement, so that this can be really an interactive session. So Carlos, Rafał, thank you so much again for accepting our invite and being today with us. And let's start you know, with Carlos first, so that he can give us some tips from EIT Digital, and later on we can move some more practice approach with Rafał, and then finally the discussion between all of us.
All right, thank you, Dominika, and thank you, Paweł, and thank you, Sonia from Kraków Park Technology for this invitation. I'm really glad to be here and be able to share some of my experience working with scale-ups in the last few years from EIT Digital. So I'm gonna start a little presentation just to guide my conversation and make it a bit more lively. Just 1 second. One second, I'm not that used to Zoom. I usually work with other platforms.
So there's a shared screen, the green button at the bottom.
That's right. Okay. Yeah, it was easy enough. Thank you. Okay. Can you see my screen?
Yep.
Yes. Yes. You can
Great.
maybe, you know, show slides. Yes.
Great. All right. So just maybe start quickly a few words about myself, just to give you a sense of who I am and my background. About 25 years of professional experience working in Europe and the US. Started out as a management consultant, working for McKinsey for about 5 years. Then in the early 2000s, I caught the first wave of the internet revolution, worked for an internet incubator back in Spain. It was 20 years ago, which is amazing to think, but anyway. I worked with Microsoft, caught the first wave of collaboration tools, the first version of SharePoint that's derived in what's now Teams, etc. Then I moved from the digital world to the brick and mortar world. I was a management committee member and manager in multiple multinationals. I opened up subsidiaries in foreign countries. I was here in Poland for the first time in 2007 for 3 years, starting up the Polish subsidiary of a Spanish company. I managed medium-sized companies as well lately, as Richard knows, and I was here in Poland managing PMR. And for the last 5 years, basically, I've been helping startups scale up and engage with corporate and enterprise customers and partners from EIT Digital, and that's the sort of experience that I'm going to try to leverage today. So all in all, you can say I'm a bit of a Renaissance man, although more, mundane definition would be I'm more of a Swiss Army knife. But in any case, I've been on both sides of the force, you could say. Anyway, basically, Pavel asked me if I could give a few tips, 3 main blogs about, how to build an internationalization strategy. Okay, and I thought, about 3 things that I wanted to mention. Obviously, these topics are interrelated; they're not standalone topics. But first one is, how to come up with a good go-to-market strategy, and I'll elaborate a little bit on that. Second, how to put together a good action plan per country or vertical. And then third, funding, which is something that you always need as you think about going international, and how to think about that and how to actually interrelate it with the other topics. So starting with the go-to-market strategy, at the end of the day, obviously as you live every day, a startup is, if nothing else, you have limited time, resources, and you really need to be able to pick up your spot. So as you're thinking about going international from a position where you already probably have a product that's being used by the market, by customers, and you're well beyond the product market fit phase, you want to now pick up, where I can have the highest probability of success as I go outside my borders, right? That's what you want to maximize, and that's about defining where exactly you would like to start, which countries and regions, and which verticals and use cases. Depending on your solution, there might be specific areas where you want to focus rather than to try to cover all the ground you're covering now. And that has to be based at the end of the day on looking at a few things. The first thing is obviously market size and the market conditions, and by conditions I mean things in that market that make it different from the market where you're operating now, whether it's language considerations, which a lot of time are overlooked, particularly when you're thinking about B2B sort of business, when you're working with corporates, etc., regulation, things like that. It's really important, I think, in my experience, to really look at the competition, not only the competition you're aware of, let's say, that has more of a global footprint or pan-European footprint, but also looking at the local competition. As you can imagine, if you're working particularly with enterprise or corporate customers, all things being equal, they're going to probably be more favorable to working with a startup, which already is something that they're not necessarily used to, that's local to your market, rather than a company that comes from another market. So you really need to know who these companies are, and you need to be able to convey what makes you different, right? And obviously how recruitable your unique selling proposition here is in your business model. And I think very important, obviously, scalability, but particularly the quick wins. I mean, at the end of the day, the most difficult thing when you enter a market is breaking the ice, getting your first customer. So it's good to think ahead of time how you would go about getting that first client. What's the best way to maximize your possibility to get that first reference that makes things a lot easier. And all these things really can be done for the most part from desk research, pretty much. I mean, it's good to spend some time doing this properly and having a good sense of where you want to go and how. Then the second part is to actually put together an action plan, and to the extent possible, specifically for per country or the vertical you're going for. And obviously think about what are the best tactics for your company to generate sales. There's the discussion is always of inbound versus outbound, whether marketing or sales, and really here a lot of the times it's really not so much about which one, but rather how to do both in a concerted way, right? And then the debate about, you know, digital and physical. A lot of times now, and particularly now with COVID, obviously, we're actually forced to do a lot of strategy and outreach on a digital base only. But at the end of the day, it's also important to understand where you actually need to be local to actually close relationships and deals, and you know, and that means salespeople. That means trade fairs and events sometimes, things like that. Then obviously, what are assets and resources, both commercial and operational, are really necessary for this. And in terms of resources, obviously, resources in general, but in particularly what sort of resources you're gonna devote to this international expansion from a sales and marketing point of view, and also what sort of materials do you need to, you know, localize your solution in some way. You need to adapt it in some way. Do you need some local infrastructure? Sometimes if you're offering, you know, a solution that's based on private clouds, you need to make sure you have a local partner for hosting, things like that, right? And then what sort of partnerships can actually accelerate the process? Because at the end of the day, there are ways of accelerating this by, you know, finding people who can help you get where you want to go faster, right? And that means obviously thinking about potential channel partners or prescribers. There's, and in my experience, a lot of times what happens is if you're thinking about channel partners as a way to accelerate, that makes a lot of sense. But channel partners really work when you already have some presence locally. So you need to probably do both. Get your own customers first, and then, you know, get local partners to help you, you know, with the outreach. And then sometimes also product or technology partners that can help you, you know, develop your product further, right? And then the third part obviously is funding. And again, you know, this percolates everything and is, you know, before, after, it's everywhere, right? But at the end of the day, obviously it's about thinking what the best strategy is for your company, for you, in terms of, you know, what size of funding you need to, what sort of round you need to make, what are the timings, what sort of investors you would like to have in your cap table. And what the nature of the funding is. There's sometimes obviously vehicles that allow you to get the resources you need short term without diluting yourself, or, you know, sometimes you get you know, so it's all these things. Obviously, this is not rocket science, but it's something that a lot of times, you know, gets caught in the way. Then I think important part and is, you know, a lot of times when you're thinking about going international, the sort of round you need is what we usually call a growth round, so a Series A, so something where you probably want to expand your investor base, go with professional investors on an international basis, etc. How do you actually manage that sort of round without losing execution focus? Because usually that takes a lot of bandwidth from your founders, from the managers. You know, if you really want to make sure that you entice and interest international investors, you really need to spend a lot of time of the top people in the company to do that. And that's usually underestimated, the timings and the bandwidth that it consumes. And then how do you actually, if you want to attract international investors, right? So there's a question of reach, how you actually get to them, to make sure that by the time you do that, you have a cap table that's good enough for that. I mean, as you know, international investors like to see founders who keep majorities of their companies before they go for growth rounds. So you need to be aware of that before you get to that point. And you know, what your investment case and go-to-market strategy is. A lot of times you'll be more likely to attract investors, say from Germany or France, if you're targeting these countries from a commercial point of view, right? So that's a bit, you know, Pavel told me we had 10 minutes, so I wanted to cover the points, but obviously we'll be able to talk about that. Wanted to quickly mention, you know, how we try to help companies do these sort of things from EIT. So quick word about what EIT Digital is. We're part of the EIT, the European Institute of Innovation and Technology. This is an entity funded by the European Union that basically its mandate is to promote innovation and entrepreneurship in different areas of innovation. And digital obviously covers all digital technologies, both enabling technologies like cybersec, cloud computing, etc., as well as some vertical applications of it. We've been operating for about 10 years now. And it's an organization where we have about 100 professionals working in 16 countries all over Europe, about 200 partner organizations, and over 1,000 corporate customers and investors in our work on a pan-European basis. Basically, we have 3 lanes of activity: the accelerator, which is our support for startups that I will mention very quickly; our innovation factory, where we basically co-fund innovation projects that are presented by our partnership in an annual call. And we have our own academy where we have education programs that are delivered by some of the top technical universities across Europe. What we do basically for founders and startups is 3 things. We have a customized program where we do, on the one hand, what we call access to market, so helping companies secure customers and commercial partners. Typically, we're a good organization to partner with if you're targeting corporate and enterprise customers in general. That's and in certain verticals that we cover. Then access to finance, what we call access to finance, which is helping companies raise funding, do Series A rounds with international investors. And then we have, let's say, a series of benefits, what we call access to ecosystem, which is helping companies access talent from our schools, have a workspace in our different locations across Europe, have access to our technology partners in the ecosystem, etc. Okay. We're a team of about 25 people, with profiles similar to mine, both, more specialists, let's say, in the part of helping access corporate customers or in coordinating funding rounds. And we have and are supporting quite a few companies from Poland. Just wanted to give you a few examples. Well, actually, the companies we've supported so far. So the first company we supported was Pivik Pro, company out of Wrocław, that, as you know, is a competitor to Google Analytics, pretty much, would be the best summary. Synerise, who signed with us a year and a half ago. They're in their 2nd year of collaboration with us. You probably know them, of course. Cash Director, company out of Warsaw in the fintech space. VersaBox out of Warsaw as well, in the autonomous mobile robot space, intralogistics. Sentiwan out of Gdańsk, in bots and social listening tools. And Talent Alpha out of Kraków, as you know, who recently joined our program as well in the HR tech space. And that gives you a sense of the companies we're working with from Poland. We've collaborated so far with over 200 companies over the course of our existence, and and that's a bit of a summary of what we do.
Thank you, Carlos. I believe this is very useful, and I'm super glad to see, Talent Alpha, our stakeholder, also on the list. So thank you so much for this intro. I believe there's a bunch of questions that we would like to address, but let's leave it after Rafał's presentation. So, Rafał, if you could now share some of your tips and strategies with us, and then we would move to more open discussion.
Sure, thank you. Can you see my presentation?
Yes, everything is very clear, thank you.
Awesome, so maybe I will briefly introduce myself. So I'm an entrepreneur since 1996. 2007, I started my first venture-backed startup. 2008, I was bringing that idea as it was educational platform for little children to international markets. So it's like 12, 13 years right now when I share my time between Poland and US. I was also on the investor side. I invested like in 30 startups, I believe. And since 2014, I'm fully focused on Silviar. So I would love to share four different cases or areas which work for us with working with international customers. So first of all, who we are. So at Silviar, we believe that any building can be smart and sustainable. We are B2B software only company, and we provide lighting solutions that are energy efficient, secure, increase the comfort of occupants. We are, for us, actually lighting, some of the companies or investors, they define us as a lighting company. Not really. We use lighting as a backbone for IoT services, for data. So briefly, the history of Silviar. So it was founded in 2011, but actually it was tech lab. My co-founders were exploring different wireless technologies for IoT. 2014, together we incorporated a Silviar Inc. So we collected few seed rounds, mostly from US, but also from Japan. 2017, we did our Series A, and 2018, we did our IPO at Warsaw Stock Exchange. So that's briefly who we are. So let me share our experiences in 4 different areas. So first, which really worked for us with attracting customers, was our investor relations. So I think it's extremely important to use the investor network to connect with your potential customers. So 2014 in Silicon Valley, I had this pleasure to meet with Vinod Khosla a few times, and actually we were exploring an opportunity to invest at Silviar. But actually the biggest benefit was his introduction to Sora. So Sora, probably that's the company will tell you nothing as a brand. So Vinod, he basically did a really brief introduction, like a 1 sentence, like, Jeff, you should meet Rafal. And I found that actually and explored the first real lighting company on our road. The company was founded by Shuji Nakamura. So Shuji Nakamura, 2 years later, was awarded with Nobel Prize at Physics for blue LED. So this is really an icon in the lighting world. So we started to work with Sora. It was our first and the only customer. So we polished our product. We learned how to actually embed our software into the lamp. And Sora presented those products in 2015 in the biggest actually lighting event, which is called Silviar International in New York. And that actually our gates to the lighting world really opened. So everything was because of our meeting with investors and his introduction. And guess what? 4 years later, we get a Silviar International award, beating Osram and beating Signify, which is actually amazing. So that's number 1. Number 2, going to those industry events. So for us, this is actually extremely important. So choose the right event, make yourself visible there. So try to get the presentation, try to get the panel discussion, try to get the workshop. So we got like a number of different, of the last few years, different events. I think my co-founder was like probably over 100 different presentations on the stage. And it converted to working with customers really, really well. So as you see this picture on the top right, this is 2015, I believe, or maybe 2016, early 2016. It was a Lux event in London. And this guy, and there was a panel discussion about the different wireless technologies in lighting. And actually, Bluetooth mesh was still in the stealth mode. We were working with Bluetooth SIG on that technology. And this guy, this is an Osram guy, and we were arguing about like which protocol is better. Is it a Bluetooth mesh or Zigbee? And it was a pretty interesting discussion. But afterwards, you got this access, to this speakers rooms, and you got access to the speakers dinner, and you are able to discuss and explore that ideas further. And 2018, actually, we signed up Osram for providing the wireless technology. So this is B2B, so it really takes time, but definitely that was the start of that cooperation, arguing between each other, like which technology is better. Applying for awards, so we got like a number of different innovation awards in the lighting events. I don't think they help much, but always help to be more visible. You always there's an opportunity to get on the stage and introduce your company. So a few words about Osram and what's important. This is the second largest lighting manufacturer, present in 120 countries. And as a startup, it was like a big deal. It was really, proving that your technology is there. And what I'm really proud of, because we are providing the software for Osram, an app and browser-based tools. But all of those tools, there is a technology partner, Silvair, in it. So it's kind of like a Gore-Tex idea or like Intel Inside idea, which actually gives you like a lot of visibility with with Osram customers, which actually attracts even more customers to you. And that's the news from last week. So within this Osram net company, there's a company in the US called Fluence in the horticulture space. So because of that event at Lux Life in London, because of that panel discussion, we had an opportunity to work with Osram. And right now we had an opportunity to work with their daughter company with a totally different application, the same software, totally different application. We're extremely excited about it. The third area, which really well worked for us, is Bluetooth SIG network. So Bluetooth SIG is a non-profit organization. It's like over 35,000 member companies. And we were deeply involved with building this Bluetooth mesh standard, working among the companies like Intel, like Qualcomm, like Nordic and others. But actually Silviar was the first company in the world which actually qualified with a full firmware with the Bluetooth mesh standard. And with working within that working groups with a number of those companies also give you visibility to the other companies. So there's a company called Murata. Probably none of you have heard about that company, but they are providing a number of the wireless chips, for example, for iPhone. They used to provide for iPhone, like a number of those chips. But anyway, 2015, we had this opportunity to work with that global partner. And then because of that cooperation, we had a chance to attract investors from Japan. So we got right now 2 investors from Japan, and that's because of Murata and their network. Actually, in Japan, they're giant, and that's because of Bluetooth mesh. So they created, they fully retrofit their office space in the US with our software, and which is actually really great case study. Last year, actually, it was 2019 and also 2020. It was my second trip to Japan. They invited us, and they introduced us to their customers. And it would be like totally impossible if that cooperation, that relationship wouldn't start within Bluetooth Mesh Working Group. So we had this chance, to be exposed to these global giants like, CBRE, like Nikon, and other companies over this 2 weeks trip, because of our contribution to Bluetooth SIG and because of early cooperation with Murata. And also I can tell you that in Japan, we have our first building fully equipped with Silviar technology in Yokohama. The fourth area, the project and case studies. So actually each project matters. So run your test projects, showrooms, anything you can promote, anything you can talk about, because success stories attract other customers. That's one of the examples of our case study. Is a Stratosphere building in Las Vegas. It's a really iconic building. It's not a huge project. It's like 100 downlights. So it's a pretty small project for us. But this picture is like worth it. You know what I mean? It's like really, it's going through the media, and always you can stick your brand into that. So it's really worth to do a project. It's really worth to do case studies and promote it. So that's the other example which worked really well for us. That's Yamaha a building in the US. And also this one is really amazing because, you know, Osram, they retrofitted their whole office in Munich because, you know, they were testing our technology. So they also promoted like a number of those case studies, how they did it, how quickly, how easy was that. And because of that ingredient branding I mentioned before, because of that technology partner Silvair, all those marketing materials really went through, and we were able to attract the other giant called Silviar, which we work with them at this moment because of Osram. What actually didn't work for us really well in terms of, you know, attracting customers. So I might say that the startup and tech events didn't work well. Like, you know, we were at TechCrunch Disrupt presenting there. We were at the demo conference. We were at Dreamforce. You know, there was like a lot of effort, you know, with preparation for that and also costs related to that. But actually it didn't work well for us. And obviously cold emails do not work at all with B2B relationship, like in our case. So thanks a lot. Hope it will help you to get your international customers. I'll be happy to answer any questions you have.
Yes, thank you, Rafał. I think that